Welcome, everyone. My name is Julia, and I am a career coach and strategist with over 10 years of experience helping ambitious professionals like you find clarity in who you are and helping you align your values and preferences to your career. This podcast is one of the main ways I share my knowledge, strategies, and experience with you. And if you check out the podcast page on my website, I have all the seasons organized and easily accessible to find what you need. Along with the podcast, I have multiple courses, resources, and I offer one-on-one customized career coaching covering career exploration, career management, and career advancement. Head on over to ridethetidecollective.com to check it all out. This season has been all about controlling your career, and I've shared the process that I created to help you get started controlling your career. This episode is all about answering your questions and common questions that I receive about the process and the formal program. So I'm just going to jump right in and start asking and answering these questions for you. So the first question, what happens if I take the assessments you recommended and I'm more confused? This is a great question and actually very, very common. In most cases, I get people who have taken assessments before and are not impressed with the results. And usually it's because somebody has not gone over the results with them, or they have not really helped them understand the results as it relates to them. So in these situations, debriefing with someone trained to interpret the assessment is really your best bet. In my program, I'm administering these assessments and working through them with my clients, which allows me to notice patterns or inconsistencies that may arise within your results. And that's something that we unpack and we talk about. And that doesn't happen often enough when you are maybe part of a group situation when it comes to assessments. The reality process in the first phase is rough. Any recommendations to get through it? If you're working through the questions I posed in the second episode, which is where we talked about phase one, and you're finding them difficult, you'll want to enlist the help of a coach at this point, and in some cases, maybe a mental health professional. So why? I gave you softballs in that episode, and that was really intentional. These are the basic, most common questions to unpack, but they aren't that deep. I have multiple pages of questions that really dig into your preferences, your bias, your behaviors, your experience so much. So this is partially why I'm very highly selective for my clients in this program. Talk about that a little bit later. But unpacking is one of the main and most important components, I would say, for this process to work. Is it hard? Yes. Is it worth it? Absolutely. So if those few questions really gave you a hard time, then you definitely are going to want to enlist help from someone else to help you unpack that. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. Okay. That's nothing to be ashamed of, because sometimes we have things that are blocking us that we don't even realize. Right. And so I've talked about this before. I don't know if I've talked about it in this season, but I have a line in terms of what I'm willing to talk about and what I'm willing to unpack with my clients. That line crosses into a space where I feel like somebody who is a licensed psychologist or counselor is really the most appropriate. I will make that recommendation for you. And so that's why I make that for this question as well. I'm horrible with habits. Any other tips you recommend? So I didn't dig too deeply into the actual habit process. And that's because the schedule audit process is already really intense for most people. But what I do recommend is the book, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. I will link it into the show notes, into the blog post for this episode. This is a great book about habits and process. Outside of that, you need to remember that habits take time to build. It won't happen in a week. If you're building daily habits, you need at least 30 days, sometimes more, for them to become fully established. Having said that, if you have ADHD or you're managing some kind of mental or emotional situation, building habits will be much more difficult, and the strategies that you utilize will likely look different. And this is where, if you are already in therapy or something like that, then that's where, I can give you ideas based on what I'm seeing, but that's also where a mental health professional can come in, who is just more knowledgeable about whatever your specific situation is, and they can help you with some of that habit building if that's the best thing for you. What should I do if I'm in a toxic situation and feel stuck? This is also very common, and this is one of the main reasons that clients tend to come to me. And this is actually a little bit more of a general career question, but stems from a lot of situations that I see clients come to me specifically with regard to this program. But many people who want to control their career, they're coming from a toxic situation and they need a way out. So if it's a really, really bad situation that can't be managed anymore, like you've been doing everything that you can to manage the situation, take time to find a job that gets you out. Okay. This is what I call a stopgap position. It might look like a lateral move. It might be a temp or contract position. In some cases, it's what I would call a throwaway job. You might not even put it on your resume. It really just depends, but it'll pay your bills. It'll pay your bills. It'll give you time to heal, which we do not spend enough time talking about in the career world, let me tell you. And it just frees up your brain space to be able to work through the control your career process and be more intentional about your next move. So make sure that if you are in this scenario, you are reporting situations that are harmful to human resources. I know sometimes that's scary, but having that information on record helps them potentially build a case if they see a pattern, if multiple things are happening. So definitely let human resources know. If it's impacting your ability to work or function, absolutely go see your doctor. You might be able to get a temporary leave of absence under FMLA. It just depends on your organization and what their policies are. So read up on that. If there's a way for you to step away without any type of retaliation, that would be the best thing to do in the majority of cases. I know that's not true for everyone, but if you can do it, do it. In the action phase, I think I'm a combination of career exploration, management, and advancement. What is the best way to manage my time? This is such a great question because this is also very common. Most people are in a job that they need to manage and they aren't sure what's next. So they also need to do the exploration and they're also ready to advance. So we see all three happening at the same time. Very, very common. So my recommendation is to always focus on managing the current situation first, because managing that situation gives you the energy to manage your exploration and advancement. So the current situation can sometimes take up more space than it should if it's not being managed well. And by space, I mean your mental space, your emotional space, your time. And from there, the exploration would be the next focus, and then advancement. A lot of people want to skip directly to advancement. Oh, I got to do my resume. I got to talk about negotiation. I got to do all this stuff. I got to look for the job. That's because it's the easiest thing to do, but it's not the first thing. Manage the current situation, figure out what you actually want to do, then go into the advancement process. Exploration will take more energy, but the advancement process, and which is effectively the job search process, it can be much more frustrating and draining. But the advancement process is very procedural. So once you know what you want from the exploration phase, you can then weed out positions and opportunities very, very quickly, usually, and then focus on what makes the most sense. I have a bad relationship with my manager and I know it needs to get fixed. How should I start? This is such an awful scenario, but happens way more than I would care to admit. But I do love this question because I think it's helpful for many people to hear about this and talk about this. Um, so yeah, this is a hard situation, but looking at the reality of the situation is always the first step for myself and my clients who are in similar situations. What is true? What is within your control versus your manager's control? Are there situations that you need to reframe in order to be open enough to have a thoughtful conversation? From there, I find that the seek to understand is a really great approach. So using the phrase, help me understand, works wonders when we're talking about situations of managing up, which is essentially what you would do in this scenario. If you happen to know your manager's preferences or style, start to approach them from that lens, and it will help to create a more comfortable setting for them, and it will allow you to get to know them and them to get to know you. So share information about yourself when it's appropriate or when asked, but you definitely don't want to make it about you. When you're trying to mend a relationship, it needs to really be about the other person and understanding who they are, understanding their perspective. If this sounds like the approach a manager should take, you are right. But not all managers are good managers. Not all of them are trained. And in some cases, personalities and preferences clash. Like, that's just a reality. And sometimes that's really hard to mend because it's hard to look past certain things if they don't align. So starting conversations around each other's strengths and how you might complement or assist each other is a really, really wonderful approach to take as well. So when you're repairing a relationship, again, it is largely about the other person's ego, especially in the beginning. Now, I'm giving you some really generalized advice here because obviously these situations are very, very specific to each person. If this is a toxic situation, if you look back and this person is really rude to you, mean to you, truly toxic, that's not a situation worth working through. You need to report it. You need to try to get out of that situation. So then it would fall into toxicity. If you look at the reality of the situation and it's really a misunderstanding, or you are misinterpreting what is going on, or you're taking the way that you've been treated in the past and applying it to this person, I know I've done that. That's manageable. We can manage that, right? Again, that reframing aspect. In episode 2, you mentioned the big question. What if I can't answer it? So the big question refers to if time, money, and skill weren't a barrier, what would you do? If you are having trouble answering this question, it could be for a few reasons. One, you might be a more practical person who has a hard time dreaming or allowing yourself to dream. If this is the case, one way to approach this is to think back to your childhood and consider your interests from that time. Or a lot of times what we wanted to be when we were younger, or what we thought we would be, there's truth to that, right? There's some interest there that is a good starting place to explore. It might not relate to you anymore, but again, it's just a good place to start. The other is to give yourself space to dream. I find that going to a place that is relaxing and allows your mind to wander is really helpful. For me, I like going places with water, so lakes, beach, river, something like that. Some people like nature in other forms, a coffee shop, going on a walk, driving. I also enjoy driving, although with the gas prices, not as much right now. But whatever helps you let go and essentially free your mind to be able to dream. Two, many of us have had expectations put on us from a younger age. Hello, millennials. Uh, because of this, it can be hard for us to dream because there's so many other things we believe that we need to take into account. Our parents' expectations, obligations to our family, our significant others' career or preferences. Um, Especially women, we're taught to put all of that ahead of what we want or need. There are also cultural considerations in many cases. The reason that I ask this big question of my clients is because I want to see where your head's at and what your barriers are that we're working with. And so understanding any kind of bias or voice that's going on in your head is really helpful. I can tell you from my personal experience, I'm an only child. My parents were in my head. They had very high expectations of what I should be, what I should do, how I should approach everything. And that really shifted my ability to dream, especially as I got older and I got married and now I have a kid. And all of those things really shift what that looks like for us. So I have certain things that I think would be really awesome to do that at this time are not realistic, but they sit in the back of my mind. And it's something that I think if you were to really spend some time thinking about, you probably have that as well. This is not a trick question. It's not meant to stump you. It's meant to uncover, like I said, that thought that's in the back of your head that pops up every so often. That one that you want to fulfill when you're daydreaming of a different career. And it might not be practical, and that's okay. That's absolutely okay. I want to know, what is the range of that dream, whether it's practical or not. And there might be multiple variations to think about as well. Sometimes there is a practical version, and sometimes there is both a practical version and then a man, if I could just do anything, it would be this. And we have conversations around that. So give yourself space and it will come. I have so many goals I want to accomplish, and now I don't know where to start. So, for my ambitious high achievers out there, this is not uncommon. We usually have so many goals that we want to accomplish, and if we can't do it quickly, we think we failed. Anybody else feel that way? I know that's how I operate. But I have two approaches here. One, go for the quick win. Always go for the quick win. Start with something that can be completed within the next month or so, quicker if you can. And that is to give you what I would call an accomplishment high. You want to just have that feeling of, oh, I did it. I accomplished something. I can move forward. This is really important as well if you're in a toxic scenario. You need to have a quick win, so make sure that you're identifying that. And second, consider the goals that are necessary versus the goals that would be cool to complete. So start with those necessary goals and then add those supporting goals or the other goals that would be a nice to have as you have time. Prioritization is the name of the game when you have a lot of goals to sort through. If you have a significant other, this is a great conversation to have with them as well. In many cases, your significant other will know you well enough to provide insight on what to prioritize. But again, don't overdo it. Really think about what is most important right now and what you need to get done to kind of get you to the next step. That's usually what I would focus on. I've worked through all of these episodes and I think I need more help. How do I know if I'm a good fit for the Full Control Your Career program? So first thing to know, again, this season is an introduction, so it's likely not going to get you everything, but for some people it's going to be just enough. So it really just depends. But the first thing to know here is this program is extremely selective. I only accept a few people into it at any given time. Okay. Having said that, a good fit for this program is someone who is really looking for transformation in their career. You are ready to dig deep into who you are as a person and a professional. You're ready to have hard conversations and take responsibility for your choices and behavior when appropriate. Obviously, not in toxic scenarios. When you're ready to basically you're ready to learn about yourself and what makes you tick. you're ready for action and to define what success means for you. If this sounds like you, I do require a conversation between the two of us to determine if I'm a good fit for you and if I'm the best coach for your situation. I will never recommend this program if I don't think it will help you. I have other coaching options that sometimes are a better fit depending on your situation. And just to give you some idea of how the program runs, this program is a combination of a flipped classroom model, a lot of activities, usually written activities, but other things that I give you through a really cool resource box that I send to you, and then 12 coaching sessions. So you're given access to a course that aligns with each phase and module of the program. This includes videos for you to learn about various topics before we discuss them. That's the flipped classroom model. I use this model to save time during our coaching sessions. This allows us to really dig deep into those sessions for more tough and more complicated topics. If the content of this program were only delivered through coaching sessions and I had to do the teaching in combination with the coaching, there would be well over 20 or more sessions costing likely tens of thousands of dollars because of the time that it takes. So I have condensed that to make this type of program doable, affordable, and accessible. So since we're talking about investment, since we're talking about the potential for investment, let's talk about the investment for this program. The investment is tied to the frequency of the sessions. So if you choose the pay in full option, not only do you get access to my LinkedIn course at no additional cost, but you also get an additional session focused specifically on your LinkedIn profile and strategy. And then this option also allows for more flexibility with your 12 sessions. So we can really time it however you want to time it. So if you want to do a couple of sessions, weekly and then take a break for a couple weeks and then do the next one, we have that flexibility when you do the pay in full option. I also have 3 monthly payment options that coincide with the frequency of coaching sessions. So I have a 3-month program that is weekly sessions, very intensive. It's rare that I recommend that for people. I have a 6-month program that is every other week sessions, and then a 9-month program that is every 3 weeks we have a session. So I'm not going to share the exact investment for this program on the podcast. And that is just in the event that the numbers change or that I make changes to the program that impacts the investment. But they are on the website. I do not hide the investment costs or make you call or get on a call to know what the cost is going to be. Everything is outlined on the website, and I'll link it into the blog post so that you can review it if you're interested. But I am not trying to hide anything from you. I just know that this podcast is going to live on, and so I want to make sure that if changes are made to the program, you can look at that on the website for the program, so you can go check that out. All right, our final question for this episode. I have professional development funds that I need to use. Would this program qualify? I love this question. Many people are not sure if they can use a one-on-one coach like me for professional development, and you usually can. And this, what's really great is this is a really structured program. So for professional development, it really easily aligns. So in most cases, you can use this for professional development. The other thing that I like is that while it is highly structured, it also provides for individual flexibility depending on your goals. If you recall, we had our goal setting session and then we have that action session. And so depending on what you're trying to do, we will customize those action sessions to fit whatever your needs are in your specific position. I think this is a great program for aspiring or new managers to learn about themselves. I think this is, we always talk about how managers don't get training, they're not aware, they don't know what to do. This is a really great program if your company does not have a formalized training program, or you feel like you need more information about yourself in order to be a good manager. So I would highly recommend it in those scenarios, though it can work in other situations. And again, we can align those the goals and the action sessions to your professional development goals or whatever goals your manager has for your specific development. One thing that I am happy to do is not only get on a call with you to discuss if it's a good program for this situation, but I'm also happy to speak with your manager or somebody in human resources to ensure that this program meets any requirements for professional development funds. Because of how the program is outlined, it's also really easy to provide a simple report or progress if it is needed to, again, know how you're spending the funds and how the process in the program is going. All right, that is all for this episode. And I hope that some of your questions were answered here. If not, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's usually the best way to do it. But also, while this is a Q&A episode, I am still going to give you some action steps. And the action for this episode is to check out the information page for the Control Your Career program and consider if this program is right for you. If you aren't sure or you're looking for something different, definitely schedule a call with me. There is a link actually on the Control Your Career information page, and we can discuss what the best course of action would be. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you on the next season.